So, hello, everyone. I am Dr. Isela Garcia.
And I'm Nina Vasquez.
We are Love Being, and we are here to just kind of chat a little bit about self love. Now, just a little bit of background about who we are. Again, I'm Dr. Isela Garcia. I'm actually a spiritual teacher and a medium, and I'm highly intuitive. And so, what that means is I actually tap into people to kind of get a sense of what's happening in your world, in your life, and figure out what is keeping you from accessing your truest, highest self, the self that is powerful beyond measure, the self that is still in union with source. And that connection is where you can truly manifest and create your reality, and also live a life where you can access peace, love, harmony, um, joy. Those things are inherent in our being. And that's what love being is, that once we can access that love, we can actually show up in the world as that love. And so that's what I do. I help people identify what are the things that are getting in the way of you accessing the truth of who you are and living the life that you want to experience. And because I've got years and years of trauma healing experience, and I integrate the science of healing into the spiritual awareness of that, the depth of who we are. And Nina, share what you do and how we come together to do this work.
Oh yeah, it's so cool the way that we bring our both of our worlds together. I am a trauma-informed life coach, and really what I do is help you identify your subconscious and unconscious thoughts, feelings, and emotions, and trauma survival patterns that you developed in childhood to get through your childhood and help you heal those wounds so you are living a more conscious life and you are you know, when we come together, what's so cool is Isela helps you identify what is it that's blocking you from accessing your divine nature, right? Your the truth of who you are. And then I help you go in and heal what it is that you have maybe a block around
Yeah, I
or
think, go ahead, Nina.
or a pattern. Sometimes we have a pattern that we've developed and it's been with us all of our life and we keep attracting the same. And so my whole intention is to help you get to the root so we can stop just treating symptoms of trauma.
Yeah, I think what's beautiful about our experience together. So, Nina works a lot on the soma, which is the body, connecting to the body. And so, between breath work and somatic work, and you even have some knowledge, I would say some extensive knowledge around plant medicine as well. And I don't have that background or the experience. And so we come together. I mean, I do somatic work and I do like breath work. But I think because of our separate strengths, when we come together, we really can create a powerful experience for people. And one of the things, actually, this has happened a lot recently. I've had people come to me for readings and have been in lots of different types of therapy. I had one person that had, he was so funny. He's like, I have an ADHD therapist. I have a therapist, or I have a coach who helps me do this. And I have a coach who helps this, all of these things to help me do life. Right.
Mhm.
And he said, I have all of this. And I just spent the last hour with you, and you have identified the things that has taken me 3 years to
Mm.
identify in 1 hour. And so I tap into what's really going on. And because we can kind of unravel that together very quickly, we can move into the experience of healing very quickly. And so, and that's where Nina comes in. Like, we work together to go, okay, what can we do to support you along this sacred journey, is what I call the journey of healing.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's exactly what happened when I met you. It was 1 hour of like maybe an hour and a half. I get a little long-winded. But an hour and a half of my life spent, and you helped me uncover what I had been really trying to uncover for 30 something years.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Hi, Crystal. I just want to say hi because Crystal's part of our community. And
Yay! Hi, Crystal.
yay, so glad you're here, Crystal. Thanks for popping in. All right. So, what we want to talk about today is self love. And let me tell you, I'm a spiritual teacher and I'm very well aware of what is happening in the world as it applies to our collective consciousness and who we truly are beyond this time and space. So I am very well aware of that. I'm also very well aware of how what is happening in the United States is impacting people who look like us. And I am first generation American. My mom was a migrant worker. My dad was born in Mexico. And so I am deeply rooted in not only that, but my work. My profession for over 30 years has really been working with marginalized communities and really speaking on behalf and developing systems and processes on behalf of historically marginalized communities. So what's happening right now is really important to me. And sometimes I don't know how to show up here because I am I to talk about other things that feel so, I don't want to say not meaningful, but not the priority in terms of what's happening is hard for me at times. And one of the things that I really realize more than anything is that our greatest act of resistance is self love.
Mhm.
Our greatest act of resistance is self love, because when you truly understand self love and you can go inward to really understand who you truly are, how you show up in the world, and how to regulate being in this body, because we have all of the emotions and the experiences and the past traumas and the beliefs and all the things that kind of get in the way of us being able to access who we are. So once we really start to do that inward work, we learn to access that love. And then we can show up in the world, not only for ourselves, but for others from a space of love, instead of focusing on our anger and our hatred and our animosity and the division and all the things that separate us. We can show up we can show up as love.
Mhm.
And so I thought we could come on today, and we have there's so many things we can talk about when it comes to self-love. And I want to just begin with saying, many years ago, when this concept of self-love came up, a lot of people were talking about, I'm going to get my nails done and I'm going to
Mhm.
have a massage done. And there's nothing wrong with those things. Those are ways that we take care of our body and our form, right?
Mhm.
And so I don't want to like foo-foo that, like it's not a big deal. But self-love is more than an appointment at the massage therapist. It's more
Definitely.
than that. It's so much more than that. Getting your nails done. It's more than that. Now, if that's all you have the capacity to do, then my goodness, do it. But we want to really go a little bit deeper. And I thought, Nina, if you're good with this,
Yeah.
one of the things I want to talk about with self-love is how to speak your truth and
Mm.
to do it with kindness.
Okay, we cannot talk about speaking our truth without talking about the nervous system.
All right, let's do it.
Okay. So, have you ever said yes when you wanted to say no? Drop us an emoji if you've ever said yes when you wanted to say no, or you felt afraid to speak your truth with in your community or your parents or your friends because you thought maybe you might be cast out of this crowd or they would judge you or worse, you wouldn't feel safe, you wouldn't be safe, right? So we have to talk about that because I spent a lot of my life in a trauma responsive fawn, and people pleasing was like almost my identity um, before I realized it was a trauma response. And people pleasing says, the nervous system part of people pleasing says, I am safe if you are feeling a great feeling. When you're happy, I'm safe. So that can get in the way of us speaking our truth. So, speaking our truth often requires us to have safety in our body and create safety within. That way, when it comes out and the person who hears the truth, no matter what they do, you know you're safe. Now, sometimes we're in environments where it literally is physically unsafe to speak your truth, right? And so there's that aspect, but I'm not really talking about that aspect. I'm talking about the place where it's just like, maybe, for example, me and Isela, we meet regularly. We have a community where we serve, and there might be something that comes up. And if one of us withholds the truth, whatever it is, there's going to be an energy in that community. There's going to be an energy. And usually it ends with feeling resentful inside when we don't speak our truth, right? So this is my experience. I was deathly afraid to say things like, I don't know, or share my opinion when it came to certain things. And that started way back in childhood when I was to be seen and not heard. And so I kind of started to become this girl, then young lady, then this woman who didn't even know what my truth was, because all I was concerned about, my nervous system was concerned about, is somebody else's truth. You tell me what your truth is, and I'm in on that so I can be safe. So we have to bring safety into the nervous system in order to speak our truth. Tell me what your experience of speaking your truth is, Isela.
So before I go on, Mandy noticed that there's an echo. And so I want to kind of check in with the people that are here with us. Is there an echo on your end? Because we're kind of doing a double camera sort of thing. So it would make sense if there was an echo. So just let us know before we keep going. If you're good, if you have an echo on your end, if it's so distracting you can't pay attention to us. And I'll just, okay, so she can still hear everything. Okay, it's not terrible. All right. So is that good? I'm not sure. All right, well, we're just gonna keep going. And then next time we'll kind of I'll listen to the video and then see what how we can kind of play around with this. So you threw back the question, is speaking your truth? I say keep going. Thank you, Crystal.
Thank you, Crystal.
Okay, so speaking my truth, oh my goodness. So I'm not a fawner, and let's kind of describe what fawning is, okay? So, we have a lot of ways that our body responds, our nervous system responds when we feel threatened, when there's a perception of a threat, right? And so it may be, you've probably heard of fight or flight, right? It's like something happens and we become activated. And actually, what happens in the physical form is that all of your blood runs to your extremities. So it runs to your fingers and your hands because it's ready to kind of take off. It's like ready to jet. And this is why when something happens, even in relationships, we're like, I'm out, peace out. I'm not dealing with this shit. Or we might push back and be, ready to fight and, ready to go to war in that, because what's happening is our body is wanting to protect ourselves. There's the perception of not feeling safe. And it's a perception, whether it is or it isn't, doesn't matter. Each one of us is going to have a different perception. Well, over the course of time, for those of us who experienced like ongoing trauma and ongoing experiences, we form these as coping mechanisms or survival. It's our way to survive. So when we're born, whoever our caregivers are, actually give us the message, because we pick up on very quickly, of how to receive and give love. That we pick up on this very, very quickly. These are the ways in our family, in our unit, that you get love. And this is how we give love. Okay. And so for family members, our parents or grandparents or whoever cared for you, if they are emotionally unavailable, and the only time you really get connection, affection, approval, and love is when you are screaming your head off, then you start to realize, oh, I need to scream my head off like for 15 minutes and not stop. And then finally somebody will pay attention to me. If the message is you get love, attention, affection, and approval when you do things that please others and make them happy, then you go, this is the way. This is the way I get love, attention, and approval and acceptance. And that's something we all want. That's a need that we're all born with. And so people who fawn, it's also called appeasing. So people who do this are ones who kind of, give up their own needs and really do what pleases others. And they almost, there's like a camouflage that happens sometimes. And I think, Nina, when we met, I think I used that word with you, that you,
Yeah, that
I,
was the thing you told me in my reading.
I was like, I feel like you camouflage into, so you, it's like you don't even know who you are
Yes.
because you've given up, or maybe you never even had the opportunity to develop who you truly are because you kept camouflaging in all of the relationships or your
Yep.
workplace environment, your marriage, your boyfriend, your
Mhm.
girlfriend, your whatever, you kept camouflage. So you
Yep.
start to accept kind of the expectations of they have of you, and you just want to make them happy.
Yep.
I didn't have, I didn't, wasn't born like that. That was not me. I was not somebody who pleased others. I really, my first response is the fight. And it's so fascinating to me because there, I saw another creator, she was talking about the patriarchy, and that we have this expectation that, we do for our man, and we are very pleasing of them, and we say, and I don't, there's not one part of me that has that. um, I have always been one to kind of step into um, or show up in my belief system. I have not always been well received because of that.
Yeah.
I didn't know how to speak my truth. So I would just say it. So I would just be like, why are you doing that? Like, it doesn't make sense. Like, what makes sense is this and not this. Well, and so that wasn't well received because I didn't have the model of how to communicate in a way that was respectfully responsive to the person that I was speaking to. I would just say it. And so I learned it growing up that that wasn't well received because no one was
Mhm.
asking for my opinion, right? And so
Mhm.
what I learned to do is swallow it down. I learned to
Ah,
just swallow it down and not speak my truth. And then eventually, not eventually, but there were times when I would just blow up and it would just, like,
yeah.
come out, and then I would get, horribly punished for that. And so I learned to navigate who it was safe with for me to speak my truth. And then I learned to just swallow it down in spaces and places that I didn't feel safe. So
Mhm.
that's my history of learning to just become aware
Mhm.
of how I was navigating. And not only that, I learned to manipulate. And that's another big thing that a lot of us who are fighters, we learn
Mhm.
to manipulate situations and circumstances to benefit us so that so what I mean by manipulate, because people think of manipulate as like this horrible, horrible, it is horrible, but not horrible in the way that a lot of us think. What it is that you get people to think that they're the one coming up with the idea.
Mhm.
You're like, you had the idea. You just want them to believe that they're coming up with the idea. And you're like, okay, there we go. We're going to go with it. So you learn how to kind of navigate these experiences so that you get what you want. And so I learned how to do that. But
Yeah,
the
and it's
idea of
very
pleasing somebody, like just for the sake of doing that, wasn't part of my life as a child.
it's very common with the fight response to also have that control, right? Like
Yes.
control is very similar. Like I'm just gonna like control the situation so I can get what I want. I'm curious for you because I have, obviously I have clients who don't have the fawn response. They have the fight response come up. How did you start to soften those edges and speak the truth in a kind way? Because I think that's the other, do it with kindness. It was the second, speak the truth and do it with kindness. So what did that look like for you?
Okay, so first off, for those of you who have never seen me before in your life, my whole history is in my work history is in trauma, but more specifically working with young children. And so I learned, well, I didn't learn growing up. I knew how to make a friend, but I didn't know how to keep a friend. And that's a term that we use with
Uh,
young children. So when I would get pissed off at somebody, instead of having a conversation, or instead of like being reflective of what was happening and having a conversation that was respectful and saying, how do we solve this problem? And, this is something that's really bothering me. And when you said this, this is how I felt. I didn't know how to do any of that shit. You pissed me off. And I'm like, we're not friends anymore. And back in the day, because I'm old, we didn't have this whole texting thing and the whole thing. It was just like you didn't answer the phone. You like avoided them altogether. And so as I grew up, not having those skills, I went into the workplace. I had to survive. So I started working right when I went to college, and I was working with other women, and I didn't know how to communicate effectively, and I was shutting people down very quickly. And so when I was working with someone, I would just say what I needed. So I would just say, hey, can you, and I would say, can you, I wouldn't say you need to, but like, can you do this and this and this and this? But my tone and my body language was very direct, and people would take offense to that. They were like, oh, who does she think she is trying to tell me what to do? And da da da. Matter of fact, one person actually went for her lunch break. She was brand new, had only been there a couple of days. She went for a lunch break and she didn't come back. She didn't
Oh,
come back. And she told our boss, she told her that she's not the housekeeper. She's not something like that. She's like, I'm not working with her and I'm not coming back.
oh,
So I remember my boss coming in and she's like, Isela, let's kind of have a conversation about how, and she wasn't very good at communicating either. And so we really together, I think there was a group of us who came together and really were reflective of, how do we want to show up? How do we want to communicate? What do we need to learn about communication styles? And I started very early on learning about the how to communicate. And one thing, because I have lots of ways that I do this, but one thing that's really important is that we tend to communicate in ways um, that are easy for us, or that is our own communication style. The key to effective communication is to know who you're speaking to,
mm,
and to speak in the way that the other person is going to be open to receive the message. That's the key. But too often we show up in a way, communicating in the way that's comfortable for us.
yeah,
But we have to recognize, with this person, I'm going to say it in this way because this is how she's going to receive it, think about it, reflect upon it. I want her to stay open. Whereas the other person just wants me to be straight up, just tell me what you want, don't fluff it, I don't need the story that goes with it, just say it. And I know for her, that, or him, that's what they need in order to, kind of move it up, keep it moving through the day. So I learned to be responsive to the needs of others, and that just takes time and
yeah,
practice. Yeah.
yeah, definitely. Definitely. I am still learning how to communicate my truth, speak my truth out loud, and I find myself the way that you learn is you see yourself not doing it. Right? And you're like, "Oh, I could have spoken my truth there in that moment and I didn't." And then we just get to hold ourselves to, okay, what is my truth? And am I going to speak it next time? Yeah.
I think what you said there, right there, Nina, is really important. Because when something happens and you do something, you respond to a situation, right? The fact that you're actually stepping back and reflecting upon what happened, not necessarily, because I think what a lot of people do is they neurose over it. They're like, oh my goodness, what did
Yeah.
I do? And how did I say this? And why did I say these things? But to just be reflective and giving ourselves grace, like, okay, what happened? What did I say? What was the result? Is that what I wanted? Did I
Yeah.
mean what did I say what I actually meant, or was I coming from a place of reacting as opposed to responding? That reflective piece, I think, is what's missing. And why it's missing is because we're not actually born with that innate ability. This is
Mm-mm.
a journey into personal awareness, and self-awareness is one of the very first things when we're talking about emotional intelligence, is
Yeah.
becoming aware of what I said and how I said it and how the other person respond and what can I do next time we have a conversation. But too often, what folks who are unconscious, this is the unconscious level of awareness, who are just moving through life without this reflective reasoning, what happens is people react, say what they want to say, and then get pissed off and
Uh-huh.
then play the victim. Like,
Mhm.
she made me say those things. She made me so angry. She made, like, instead of going, what was my part in this?
Right. Right.
Yeah.
And you can take it to the next level of even when you tell yourself the truth, it says, speak your truth and do it with kindness. Even when you tell yourself your truth, like, ah, I just didn't speak up for myself in that moment. You could spend 3 weeks beating yourself up,
Oh, yeah.
but that's not really kind. So telling yourself, yeah, the reason why I didn't speak up in reflection, the reason why I didn't say my truth is I was worried what that person was going to think, or I was worried because of what I thought would happen. And you can tell yourself that truth without like beating yourself up and judging yourself. And I think that goes into our next one we're going to talk about, right? But like you don't have to do it in a shaming way. You can do it in a I hold myself accountable way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Before we go into, because our next topic under self-love, because we have a lot of these folks,
Mhm.
is your human mistakes happen. But before we do that, I just want to talk a little bit. I work in a well, I have historically worked in a female dominant field.
Oh.
And one of the things that I have dealt with quite a bit as a consultant is people afraid of either repercussions or not being liked or being perceived as not nice. Um, and I think it's what keeps us silent, is not speaking our truth. Like what would happen if they actually knew how I thought and how I felt. And so as you were working through, because as someone who fawns, as you
Uh-huh.
were working through this, the idea of not being well received, or that now she's going to change her perception or their perception of you, or that now you're not going to be liked, how do you move through that? Like what would be helpful to somebody who is a people pleaser, um, to be able to step into their own truth and be able to articulate that?
Two situations are coming to my mind, and like actual situations where I was like deathly afraid to share my truth. But if I take a step back, one of the biggest issues I see with us as humans is we're so disconnected from our body. We're so disconnected from our emotional selves. We don't feel safe in our body. And I was that person. I had very little connection to my emotional state. So I used a lot of coping mechanisms when I felt uncomfortable, or I just avoided things altogether. So, number one, outside of speaking your truth, I highly encourage to start using at least nervous system regulation tools. At least getting in touch and befriending your nervous system. I call this becoming the CEO of your nervous system, chief energy operator. This is what I've coined it. And when you can become that, you can see when you can notice your body like, oh, I'm getting red, I'm getting flushed, I'm getting, I have all kinds of sensations going through my body. I'm anxious, I'm nervous. Like, how do I actually walk myself through and bring myself back to safety? Right? Or if I'm completely shut down, how do I bring myself up to safety? And it really does help to understand your nervous system and to have like a toolkit in the back of your I don't know, in your purse or in your bag or something. Like I have several tools I can pull out. So on a regular basis, outside of speaking your truth, doing those tools. Like I take several deep breaths, just deep belly breaths several times a day on a regular basis. I coach people who have high stress jobs and they have no tools. So when they're stressed, they go get the donut at the office, right? They have zero tools. Nobody's ever taught them. So I would say number one, start there. And then that way, when you are in a situation where you are about to speak your truth or you have an opportunity to say your truth and it feels so uncomfortable, because I'm telling you, it almost felt like I'm going to die. I'm going to die if I say this, right? Um, you have a resource, you have a tool that you can pull out. You can take a couple deep breaths. You can start tapping on your leg to bring some safety into your body. There are so many tools, but if you don't feel safe in your body, chances are you will not speak your truth. And then you'll just feel resentful later. You'll feel upset later. So, two examples come to mind. First one, saying yes, you'll pay for something at a restaurant when like you didn't want to. Okay, the number one, you didn't want to. So you get home and you're like, oh, I can't believe I said yes to that, or I just paid because I was so like like awkward and unsafe in my body. I wasn't grounded. I didn't have my embodied truth is I want us to pay separate, right? But I just felt so uncomfortable and unsafe to say that, or just to say, I'll take two checks instead of one, right? It's a very simple. And then the other thing that came to me was just really having a conversation where I shared a little bit of my truth with a family member about my spiritual beliefs. I used to be so deathly afraid to share what I believed, even because at the time when I shared it, I was like figuring things out. I didn't have a full belief formed. I was just playing around with ideas. And I felt so afraid. And it was on a call. It was on a call like this where we could see each other. And I just was able to like bring myself to a regulated state. But if I didn't have any of those tools beforehand and I hadn't created safety beforehand, I probably would have shut down in that situation and just held my tongue and not said anything, and then just felt really not seen, not heard, not validated in that call. Those are
Yeah.
the two things.
So when used to be an administrator of crisis intervention programs, and it's still scary. Like when you have to like address something that hasn't been done, when I've had to fire people, when I've had
Mhm.
like it's not that you get comfortable with conflict. It's not like you get comfortable with addressing those things. It's that you learn how to navigate your nervous system through the
Yeah.
experience. And I had in my office, I had like a little sign on my wall, and it said, "Speak your truth, even if your voice shakes."
Uh-huh.
And that was something that I would say to myself: speak your truth, even if your voice shakes, even if you have tears in your eyes, even
Mhm.
if you're like so afraid of what the outcome is. To not speak your truth for me felt like a slow death, because
Yeah.
there is a resentment that builds. And if you know anything about resentment, resentment is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die.
Uh,
And so I knew that because I come from, historically in my family, resentment was just the way that people related to one another. I mean, years and years, people wouldn't talk to each other in my family. And I wanted to be a generational trauma breaker. Like I wanted to, and I used to say it, out loud: it ends with me. It ends with me. And so
Mhm.
I have to have the courage, and courage is always available. I have to have the courage to speak my truth. And so, what I do, and I still do this to this day, I actually learned this with kids. Everything that I've learned, everything as a leader and as somebody who does this important work of trauma healing, I've learned from kiddos. And so, what I say is, because what happens to me when I'm nervous about a situation, that I have to say something that's uncomfortable, that there's some uncertainty as to how someone's going to receive it, I get a clenching in my stomach. Like that's the way it
Mhm.
shows up for me. And what you were saying, Nina, about connecting to your body, it's really, really important, because a lot of us, if you have historical trauma in your family, a lot of us disconnected from our physical form as a way to survive.
Yes.
Nothing wrong with that. We survived. We're here. We made it.
Yep.
But now we have to integrate back into our physical body, because our body is like a satellite dish. And it tells, it's like we're sending energy out and we're receiving energy in. And once you can hone in on that, you can actually be pretty powerful in terms of your own
Yeah.
intuition, your own healing, and all of those things that are just inherent in this physical experience of life. So for
Yes.
me, what I do is I can feel the clenching in my stomach. I put my hand in my stomach, and I usually close my eyes, and I say, and I will notice what the sensation is, and then I'll label it. You don't always have to label it. I do, because I know what's happening. So I'll go, okay, tightness in my stomach. I feel you. I feel you frustration. I feel you fear. I feel you fear. And what I do
Mhm.
is I acknowledge the experience that I'm having, and then the sensation that I'm having. I acknowledge it, because I believe, in my personal experience and my experience helping others, that when we can name it, we can actually begin to tame it. And so we
Yeah.
start to go, okay, I feel you, I sense you, it's okay for you to be here, it's okay for you.
Mhm.
It's a very natural experience of feeling afraid in this moment, of feeling tension. It's okay, it's okay. And so once I really connect with that part of myself, what ends up happening for me is that it moves through me instead of overwhelming me. And
That's
so
powerful.
it can be present
Mhm.
without being what steps forward in the
Yes,
situation. Because if you're not to some degree in the place of awareness, you're in a difficult situation, boom, you're going to just react. The
for
moment
sure.
you're threatened, you're going to go right into that, fight, flight, freeze, whatever it is that
Mhm.
how you show up. When you feel threatened. And so when you're in that situation, you want to be in an enough regulated state where you can access that what's actually your prefrontal cortex, where the
Yes.
information is readily waiting for you. But if everything else is heightened, it shuts down and you go offline. You go offline.
Yes. Yeah. And Isela, you just reminded me that I was married for 13 years. And in that marriage, like at post marriage and that being over is when I started doing my healing and awakening, having my awakening journey. I used to tell myself, I don't know what I want. I don't know what I think. I don't know. That was not actually true. But in my whole marriage, we would sweep things under the rug, like I wouldn't speak up. I wouldn't say my truth, but the body knows the truth.
Yeah.
The body will tell you if you're uncomfortable in a situation. And I was so disconnected from my body, doing everything I could do to numb all my emotions, food, alcohol, TV, social media. I mean, just you name it, I was doing it to avoid how I really felt. And then, over time, the whispers become yells.
Yeah.
And I have been the person in my life that it's taken a lot. It's like almost like I've got to be like hit over the head with a sledgehammer or something, like wake up. So a lot of like quote unquote rock bottom moments so I could wake up to like, oh my gosh, you haven't been speaking your truth. You never were speaking your truth. And so yeah, that I love the way you explain that because over time, when you can do it, even if your voice shakes, even if you have tears in your eyes, you grow your capacity in your nervous system you have more capacity to keep doing it.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
I have a friend of mine many years ago. She, before I became like a thing people said, I was telling her about a difficult situation. She's a colleague and a friend of mine. I was like, oh my goodness. And then this happened and blah, blah, blah. And I felt so overwhelmed and I couldn't believe. And I was just like, went on and on and on about it. And then after she listened to me, she goes, well, did you die? And I'm like, no, I'm still here, obviously. She goes, well, you did it. And I was like, okay, like I have the power to do this. Like it's going to be okay. It's going to be
Yeah. You
okay.
didn't die. And that's
Yeah.
so key because if you can show your nervous system you didn't die and
Yeah.
do it over and over, see, I didn't die. And you're just
Yeah.
like you said, holding your belly, like, we didn't die. We're still safe. We're still here. Even if the person walks away, I'm still safe. I'm still here. I've got you. You keep creating more capacity to do it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So the next one we have here is you are human and mistakes happen as a part of self love. So you're just joining us now.
Yeah.
We're talking about ways that we can love ourselves, and that the greatest act of resistance is our ability to develop our self love. So,
Yeah.
what do you think about that? You're human and mistakes happen.
Yeah. So before we go into that, I'll just call out that I've got about 5 minutes left that I can be here together. That's my truth in this moment. Um, I think what I think about that is every time we get to reflect on the past, we have new information and we have new conscious awareness around it. And I have spent decades of my life in shame and guilt about choices I made in the past. And if you're on a healing journey of any kind, you get to do that part. You get to reflect. And sometimes it's so painful because you're filled with shame and embarrassment of your choices. And Isela really has helped me with this statement, and I'll share it with you. I felt like this statement was a gift, and it was, what if you were doing the best you could back then with the consciousness and awareness that you had at the time? And self-compassion, I'm telling you, is the antidote to shame. If you can give yourself self-compassion of like, I can see how you chose that,
Mhm.
right? I can see how you chose that. You thought you were going to be safe. Um, People always tell me things like, but I don't want to let myself off the hook. And I said, there is no hook. There's no hook. We can just remember that we're in a human experience. And part of that is making choices from our unconscious selves. 95% of what we do, what we think, what we feel is unconscious. And we cannot change without becoming aware of it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think all of us are doing the very best we can, given the resources that we have, given the life experiences we have, given the foundational framework that we have lived through. And, whatever our experiences have been, they create our beliefs, um, and it is running at an unconscious level. And so, for
Yeah.
those of you who like the idea of unconsciousness, um, is new to you, it's kind of like having a lot of tabs open on your computer. So it's like you have like the screen that you're looking at, right? And whatever you're working at here, but you might have, if you're anything like me and Nina, we have like, 25 other tabs open running in the background. And it's always running in the background. And until you close them out, right? And so our unconscious level of awareness is this undercurrent that exists. And it's the way it's created is through our life experiences, through the values that our family had. Now, this can evolve and change, but that takes an intentional decision once we become aware of how these beliefs impact our experiences of life. And so it takes time, and sometimes it's not sometimes, oftentimes with the help of others, because it is running at such a deep unconscious level that we are unaware of it. But it impacts how we make sense of the world, how we show up in the world, how we spend money, how we
Huh.
like all of the things that we do as we navigate through life is impacted directly by our unconscious beliefs. And so when people say to me, why am I having such a hard time, living the life that I want to live or manifesting the things that I want to manifest? Well, it's because this undercurrent continues to exist and it's not aligning with what you are. You're trying to shift your beliefs, but you're doing it from an intellectual state of being instead of tapping into the unconscious level of awareness. And so
Yeah.
that's what's really important for us to know. I think that we all are doing the very best we can, and we
Yeah.
have to begin to give ourselves grace for that instead of
Yeah.
punishing ourselves or telling ourselves how horrible we were and living with that guilt. Whatever
Yeah.
you're living with is the energy that you are sending out into the universe, and the universe is simply going to respond because that's all
Bring
it
it back
does.
to you,
Yep. Is it
right?
mirrors exactly how you show up. Yeah.
Yeah. One phrase that really has stuck with me when I do something that I'm just like, what was I thinking? Is how human of me.
Mhm.
How human of me to say that, to forget to do that, to make this choice. Just how human of me, you know? And I think self love, because that's the topic we're on, it takes courage to love yourself in the face of, also you have probably have a judgment part if you haven't dealt with that. It takes courage to say, I choose to love myself anyway.
Yeah.
I choose to support myself right now, even when I've made a choice I wouldn't make again
Mhm.
with this new information. And it's not easy. I think um, on the other side of like learning this, it felt very hard during, you know, to be like, oh, I can just tell myself I was human, especially for those of us who really, one of my wounds, well, many of them, but one of them was I hated myself. I literally would say this out loud. And so if you are really not liking yourself or you're full of shame and guilt, this might sound like a concept. So that's why Isela said sometimes with the help of support, you can you can choose to believe new things and start to also embody those new beliefs. Because I spent, I don't know how many years, 6 years, just trying to change my thoughts at the mind level. And that did not cure the fact that I was storing so much shame and guilt in my body. So it did take somebody coming along. And, I think that when the teacher, no, when the student is ready, the teacher appears and somebody will walk, you can just ask. Also, you can just say, send somebody my way that'll help me wake up to this or help me heal this,
Mhm.
right? And
Yeah.
they will appear. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So for if you are watching us now, I want to invite you, and you like what we're hearing, I want to invite you to our community. We actually have a community. It's called the Love Being Community. The link is in our bio over there, or my bio. I don't know if it's in yours,
Yeah.
Nina, but it's definitely in mine. There's an application process, and the reason why we do that is we want to make sure that you're coming in knowing that we are an inclusive community, that we really focus on healing and spirituality because we believe they're one of the same thing, that the healing journey is a spiritual journey as well. I am an intuitive coach, and someone who helps kind of tap into you at the deepest level of who you are, at the soul level. And Nina helps, and not helps, but Nina does the work of helping you be able to create a deeper awareness of your healing and help you develop tools and resources to build your capacity to navigate through those experiences.
Yeah. We'd love to
Okay.
have you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we're hoping to jump on
Mhm.
more frequently. And so
Yeah.
this is the first one we've done in a long time. Usually I come on and I do readings, and I'm hoping to start doing that again soon. But we are hoping to jump on more regularly. So please make sure you follow both of us.
Yeah.
And yeah, so you'll know when we are on.
Yay. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.